In the sunlit kitchen, I was placing the last side dish into Ethan's lunchbox. The clock showed 6:45 a.m. Outside the window, dewdrops sparkled in the still dim garden. The quiet residential neighborhood in the main line district seemed to be preparing itself for the day ahead. "Ethan, are you up?" I called up to the second floor, and his response came immediately. "Yes, I'm already in my uniform. This is how my day, Amanda Collins's day, always begins. I cherish these unchanging routines. Working as a part-time accountant from home allows me to spend plenty of time with my family. That's my greatest happiness." I heard footsteps coming down the stairs, and there appeared my son, who had just turned 12. I noticed his uniform pants had become a bit short. He'd grown so much in the 6 months since starting middle school. "Good morning, Mom." "Good morning. Ready for your test today?" Ethan maintains top grades in his year. But I never put excessive pressure on him. That's because I want to preserve his gentle and considerate nature. "Yes, Dad helped me review last night." Saying this, Ethan sat down at the table. Although my husband Daniel keeps busy as the director of R&D at a major pharmaceutical company, he always makes sure to have dinner with the family. Last night too, he had helped our son study after returning from work. "Good morning." My husband appeared in the kitchen and kissed my cheek. 10 years ago, we met at a company party. Attracted by each other's devotion, we married a year later. Every day since then has been filled with happiness. "Will you be late tonight?" "No, we've wrapped up the clinical trials, so I can come home at the usual time." Family time around the breakfast table. Fresh pancakes, seasonal fruits, and warm coffee are laid out. Outside the window, roses in our well-tended garden sparkle in the morning light. We moved into this house 5 years ago. The colonial revival-style home built in the 1920s was exactly what we dreamed of. A spacious open kitchen, a living room with a fireplace, bedrooms with high ceilings. And a garden where we enjoy family barbecues on holidays. Neighbors sometimes call us the ideal family, but we're just cherishing our ordinary happiness. "Oh, right," my husband looked up from his newspaper. "The weather's supposed to be nice this weekend. Should we have a barbecue?" That's one of our precious family traditions. My husband's specialty steaks grilled on the Weber, my homemade salads. And most importantly, family time after baseball practice with our son. Watching my husband play catch in the yard with our son, who's the ace pitcher on his baseball team, is my secret joy. "Should we invite Brandon?" Ethan suggested. Brandon is a classmate who lives next door. His mother Sarah is a 42-year-old housewife who's active in the PTA. While she appears sociable and polite on the surface, sometimes I sense a dark shadow behind her smile. I've heard rumors about her divorce and past domestic violence, but I try not to discuss such gossip. Brandon is shy and his grades are below average. Sometimes he looks overwhelmed by his mother's expectations, but he seems to have become good friends with Ethan. "Yes, of course," I smiled in response. My son's kindness surely comes from his father. As a mother, I'm proud that he's growing up to be someone who cares about others. "I'll ask him at school then." Ethan stood up, adjusting his uniform collar. The Brooks Brothers uniform we bought for the new semester suits his dignified demeanor well. Want a ride? My husband picked up his car keys. My meeting doesn't start until 9, so there's plenty of time. I'll go shopping too. There's a sale at Whole Foods, I said while cleaning up after breakfast. While I could order through Instacart, sometimes I prefer to select ingredients myself. And so another new day begins. The family's shoes lined up at the entrance. Cherished photos displayed above the living room fireplace. Each one is an irreplaceable part of our daily life. This is our ordinary happiness. After seeing my husband and son off, I stood by the window and sighed deeply. I silently wished that these peaceful days would continue forever, as if entrusting my prayer to the morning light. That day was a Monday like any other. In the afternoon, I had paused my accounting work and was baking chocolate chip cookies, Ethan's favorite, in the kitchen. The sweet aroma from the oven filled the room. The premium chocolate chips from Whole Foods were slowly melting in the dough. 15 minutes until my son's return from school. Outside the window, maple leaves sparkled in the autumn sunlight. A neighborhood cat crossed the garden, padding softly across the well-maintained lawn. A peaceful afternoon scene. But I didn't yet know that this tranquility was about to be shattered. The Ring doorbell chimed, signaling someone's presence. It was a bit earlier than usual. My son's figure on the smartphone screen seemed somehow awkward. An uneasy feeling crossed my mind. When I opened the door, there stood Ethan, looking somewhat different from usual. His navy Brooks Brothers uniform had unusual stains. The right knee was darkened as if scraped, and mud-like marks clung to his sleeve cuffs. The usually pristine uniform looked like it belonged to someone else. Ethan. What happened? My voice rose involuntarily. In the entrance hall, still fragrant with homemade cookies, my heart began to race. Oh, this? My son answered surprisingly cheerfully. I just fell on my way home. Don't worry, I'm not hurt. That smile felt somehow hollow. Different from his usual honest expression, there was a subtle sense that he was hiding something. But I didn't pursue it further. I wanted to believe it was just an accident. Though my maternal intuition was sending warning signals, I chose to look away. My son rushed upstairs and immediately started showering. Usually, he would eat cookies first. As the sound of water echoed from upstairs, I placed the dirty uniform in the laundry basket, grappling with the anxiety growing in my chest. The next day, my son's uniform was again covered in unnatural stains. This time, a brown stain spread across the back of his white shirt. It looked as if someone had deliberately spilled something. Even more concerning were the textbooks in his bag. The corners were bent, and pages were stained with what looked like coffee or something similar. I had just carefully covered them with new book covers at the start of the semester. Are you really okay? I asked carefully. The remains of breakfast and still warm coffee sat on the kitchen table. Yes, I just tripped in the library. The same kind of smile again. But his eyes weren't smiling. As he silently munched on his toast, I sensed an unfamiliar shadow creeping across his profile. Wednesday morning, while sorting laundry, I noticed something. A strong bleach smell emanated from his gym clothes. Irregular patterns marked the white fabric, looking like someone had deliberately applied bleach. In the laundry basket, it caught my eye like a silent plea. My chest tightened. This wasn't just an accident. Something was definitely going wrong beneath our peaceful days. That morning, I called the school. My hand trembled slightly as I held the receiver. Outside the window, the familiar streetscape spread out as usual. Maple leaves swayed in the wind, and a neighborhood dog barked. But somehow, this everyday scene felt hollow. "Hello, this is Ethan Collins's mother." I desperately tried to maintain my composure, keeping my voice from shaking. "Ah yes, no need to worry about Ethan, Mr. Brown," his homeroom teacher responded cheerfully. "He's showing no unusual behavior at school and remains as active as ever. Today he even gave an excellent answer in math class." Those words only amplified my anxiety. My son, acting normal at school. But after coming home, he was clearly different. I didn't want to think about what that difference might mean. After hanging up, I gazed out the window lost in thought. The roses in the garden sparkled in the morning light. Until last weekend, our days had been so peaceful. Now I could feel them slowly crumbling. At the weekend PTA meeting, among the gathered parents in the school's conference room, I particularly observed Sarah Thompson. She was behaving as sociably as ever. Efficiently explaining arrangements for the next event as a PTA officer. But I noticed her occasional stern glances at her son Brandon. Something in those eyes fueled my anxiety. "Oh, Amanda." After the meeting, Sarah approached me. Under her perfectly applied makeup, her eyes seemed to be trying to say something. "How is Ethan doing lately?" Brandon sometimes looks at him with a worried expression. Those words sent a chill down my spine. Did she know something? I couldn't read anything from Sarah's expression. What truth lay hidden beneath that perfect social mask? I casually asked other parents about the situation too. Mothers chatting with coffee in hand. Small talk during PTA meeting breaks. But no one seemed to have noticed anything unusual. Or perhaps they had noticed but didn't want to mention it. I hadn't yet consulted my husband. I didn't want to confuse him with unconfirmed worries when he was in the final stages of clinical trials, staying late at the laboratory every day. Besides, if my intuition was wrong. The guilt of doubting my son as a mother constricted my chest. Many times at night, looking at my sleeping husband's face, I considered telling him. But the words would come to my throat and then fade away. Then Friday came. When my son returned home with his gym clothes ruined by bleach again, I made up my mind. The silent message etched into the white fabric was a sign I could no longer ignore. I had to know the truth. My maternal instinct strongly urged me. At 11 p.m., the house was silent, and only moonlight filtered into the second-floor hallway. The bluish light streaming through the large window cast fantastic patterns on the hallway carpet. I quietly opened the door to my son's bedroom. Ethan showed a peaceful sleeping face. By his bedside, tomorrow's uniform was carefully hung up. The new book cover I had just bought last week gleamed in the moonlight. I took out a small camera. It was ultra-compact, small enough to fit in a uniform pocket. The guilt when ordering it. The hesitation when receiving it. And now, the shame of trying to use it. All of these emotions swirled within me. My hands trembled. The conflict between the shame of doubting and surveilling my own child and the desire to know the truth raged fiercely in my heart. The hallway clock's second hand ticked unusually loudly. I stopped in the moonlit hallway. My hands shook with guilt as I prepared to slip the camera into the uniform pocket. In the moonlight, my son's sleeping face looked as innocent as when he was little. "I'm sorry, Ethan," I whispered to my sleeping son. My heartbeat quickened. "But Mom needs to know. Tomorrow, the footage from this camera might dramatically change our peaceful daily life." That premonition made my chest ache. Outside the window, streetlights illuminated the quiet residential area. A dog howled somewhere in the distance. But there was no turning back now. As a mother, there was a truth I needed to know to protect my son. I turned on the camera and slipped it into the uniform pocket. The LED display blinked softly, indicating it was working properly. In the moonlit hallway, I heaved a deep sigh. What truth would tomorrow reveal? With mixed feelings of anxiety and anticipation, I headed toward my own bedroom. In the darkness, moonlight filtering through the curtain gaps quietly illuminated the room, as if watching over my decision. Morning light streamed through the lace curtains into the living room. The clock showed 9 a.m. The house, having just seen off my husband and son, was wrapped in an unnaturally deep silence. I sat on the living room sofa and opened my MacBook on my knees. My hands trembled. I was about to check the memory card from the camera I had hidden in my son's uniform 2 nights ago. The family photo above the fireplace seemed to be watching me. The happy smiles of the 3 of us in that picture now constricted my chest. "Take a deep breath," I muttered to myself. Beyond the curtains, maple leaves swayed in the morning breeze. The roses in the garden still held morning dew. A morning scene unchanged from usual. But the footage I was about to watch might greatly change this daily life. I inserted the memory card into the computer. The few seconds waiting for the data to load felt abnormally long. I reached for my coffee cup, but my throat was too dry with tension to want even a sip. The video began. At first, just footsteps in the hallway. The camera in the uniform pocket showed my son's route to school. The usual path. The usual streetscape. My son walked silently through the orderly residential area of the main line district. The time was 7:45 a.m. The school's backyard came into view. The footage suddenly shook in a corner thick with old oak trees. "Well, Ethan." At that voice, my spine froze. It was Sarah Thompson. The screen showed Sarah standing with Brandon. Perfect makeup and an expensive brand dress. The sociable smile she always showed at PTA meetings was nowhere to be seen. "Wait a moment." Suddenly, Sarah grabbed Ethan's uniform. My son stood frozen, showing no sign of resistance. Brandon remained behind his mother, head down. "Even the perfect son looks worthless like this." Sarah's voice rang unnaturally high. "Top grades and baseball ace. Don't make me laugh." The bag was thrown to the floor. Textbooks and pencil cases scattered. Sarah began splashing dirty water from a nearby puddle onto them. "Mom, stop it." Brandon pleaded in a small voice. "You be quiet and watch." Sarah's scream pierced through the morning mist. "You're always mediocre. Learn from this honor student." But she began spraying some liquid on the gym clothes she had taken from the bag. The smell of bleach seemed to transmit even through the screen. "When you look at it this way, he's just a child." I had to look away. On screen, my son just stood there silently. No resistance, no voice raised. My heart felt like it would burst seeing him like that. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for help? Couldn't you trust me?" The footage continued. Scenes of his uniform being torn, textbooks being stepped on. Through it all, my son endured in silence. Beside him, Brandon hung his head, seemingly blaming himself for being unable to stop his mother. "I'll be waiting here tomorrow too." As she left, Sarah wore a meaningful smile. "You won't tell anyone, will you? You can't, can you?" The footage ended there. Silence returned to the living room. The clock above the fireplace showed 9:15. Just 15 minutes of footage. But the reality shown within it would completely overturn our peaceful daily life. Outside the window, maple leaves still swayed in the wind. The roses in the garden still bloomed beautifully. But nothing was the same anymore. Everything had changed. I picked up my smartphone. My hands trembled. Should I report to the police? Contact the school? Call my husband? My mind was in chaos. But one thing was certain. I had to protect my son. The truth revealed by the camera far exceeded my expectations. But now wasn't the time to be shocked. Tears welled up thinking of the pain my son had been bearing alone. "Ethan." Whispering my son's name, I steeled my resolve. I had to face head-on the truth this footage had revealed. That afternoon, in an interview room at the Philadelphia police station, I handed over the memory card containing the video footage with trembling hands. Outside the window, autumn rain had begun to fall quietly. Fog hung over the old cityscape, and people hurried by with umbrellas. The police station building exuded a solid atmosphere with its brick construction. Old posters advocating community safety hung on the interview room walls. A small potted plant provided a touch of brightness to the room. "Mrs. Collins, please don't worry." Officer Jones, a female police officer, spoke to me kindly. There was something reassuring about her experienced demeanor. "This footage will serve as clear evidence. It's an important first step in protecting the victims." I had hesitated many times before deciding to report to the police. All morning, conflict had been swirling in my chest. Picking up and putting down the phone receiver again and again. But after seeing that footage, there was no time for hesitation anymore. I had contacted the school too, requesting urgent action. The principal's voice sounded grave, sensing this was no ordinary matter. That evening, in the conference room of the historic private middle school. In the solid conference room of the school building with over 100 years of history, the principal, homeroom teacher, and police officer gathered. On the table lay the video data I had submitted and supplementary evidence quickly gathered by the police. The old wooden conference table seemed to bear the weight of it all. "We take this situation very seriously." Principal Anderson, with his gray hair, began speaking with a serious expression. His face, usually wearing a gentle smile, was now stern. Actually, we had received similar reports of harm. Anonymous letters, cautious consultations from parents. But without concrete evidence. Those words pained my heart. It wasn't just my son. Sarah had done the same to other students. Looking back, there had been something off about her behavior at PTA gatherings, her conversations with other parents. As the investigation progressed, surprising facts came to light one after another. In the dimming conference room, Sarah Thompson's unknown past spread out with a heavy atmosphere. 10 years ago, she had suffered from severe domestic violence from her first husband. Daily violence, cruel words. Then finally, divorce. Her second marriage also ended after just 2 years. Repeated setbacks had gradually but surely warped her heart. Sarah Thompson showed an abnormal obsession with perfect families. Detective Murphy continued his explanation while looking at documents. She seems to have harbored strong jealousy and hatred, particularly towards ideal family relationships like the Collins family. Your son became the target of that projection. Outside the window, the rain had grown stronger. The old oak tree in the schoolyard swayed in the wind. It was as if nature itself was responding to the truth about to be revealed. At that moment, there was a quiet knock on the conference room's heavy wooden door. "Excuse me." Mrs. Wilson, the library curator, entered holding a notebook. Her expression showed determination to share something important. "There's something I must tell you." The facts she revealed left me speechless. The air in the conference room changed instantly. Every Wednesday after school, a secret study session had been held in a secluded reading room of the library. Ethan had been teaching Brandon, and Brandon had been desperately trying to keep up with his teaching. Brandon, nearly crushed under the excessive pressure and expectations from his mother. My son had been quietly but steadily supporting him. Ethan repeatedly asked me, "Please don't tell anyone about Brandon's mother." Mrs. Wilson continued while opening her notebook. He was desperately trying to protect his friend's family situation. The weekly study sessions, too, were to encourage Brandon. At that moment, I understood the true reason for my son's silence. He had endured everything to protect his friend. He feared that speaking up would worsen Brandon's family situation. A 12-year-old boy's silence, chosen for friendship. Outside the conference room window, the rain continued to fall. The oak tree in the schoolyard swayed strongly in the rain. Somehow that sight reminded me of my son's inner strength. Like an oak tree, standing firm with deep roots, quietly but surely. After the meeting ended, Officer Jones spoke to me as I was leaving. Her eyes held gentleness and respect. "Your son is truly remarkable. To be able to think of his friend in such a difficult situation. And you're a wonderful mother, to have raised a child with such a caring heart." Those words made me unable to hold back my emotions. Yes, my son had been strong. But I, who couldn't notice his suffering, as a mother. Tears rolled down my cheeks. On the way home, I thought deeply in the car. Listening to the rain hitting the windshield. Sarah's actions could never be excused. But she too was a mother, nearly crushed by life's burdens. Excessive expectations for her son. Distorted obsession with the ideal family image. Perhaps it all started from her own deep wounds. When I reached the entrance, my son was waiting. He had been sent home early from school. He sat on the sofa still in his wet uniform. Seeing me, he spoke in a small but clear voice. "I'm sorry, Mom, for not being able to tell you everything." His voice held no more fear or hesitation. I silently embraced my son. His shoulders trembled slightly. How many feelings had he carried in this small body? "I understand all your feelings," I whispered while gently stroking his hair. Warm tears rolled down my cheeks again. "But from now on, don't bear it alone. Mom is always on your side. I'm proud of your kindness." The rain had stopped, and water drops on the garden roses sparkled in the sunset. Through this trial, perhaps our family had grown stronger. And we had surely been given a chance to save another wounded family. The clock above the fireplace quietly ticked away, as if watching over the beginning of a new chapter. About a month after the incident, I visited Brandon's house. Standing at the entrance, I could hear Sarah's voice from inside. "I am truly sorry." She bowed deeply. Her previous arrogant attitude was gone, replaced by sincere remorse. Since starting counseling twice a week, Sarah had begun to change little by little. "I lost my first husband to domestic violence, lost my confidence through failed marriages." Sarah's voice trembled. "But that's no excuse. I hurt your son, hurt Brandon." On the living room wall hung family photos that hadn't been there before. Smiles of just Brandon and Sarah. Perhaps a small step, but a sure sign of change. "Mrs. Thompson," I spoke quietly, "we can't change the past, but we can change the future." From that day, a new relationship between our two families slowly began. The school's response was swift too. An emergency parents' meeting was held to discuss measures preventing similar incidents. New personnel were chosen to replace Sarah on the PTA board. But no one blamed her. Rather, everyone showed understanding that she needed time to heal. One evening, my son hesitantly brought up a question. "Mom, can I continue the study sessions with Brandon?" I hugged my son. His kindness hadn't changed at all, even after going through this ordeal. After that, on weekends, the voices of two boys could be heard in our living room. The sight of Ethan teaching Brandon math by the fireplace. Sometimes Sarah would come to check on them. Though awkward at first, she now showed natural smiles. "You solve this problem like this." Ethan's teaching voice, Brandon nodding seriously. "I got it. I'll try the next one by myself." Outside the window, autumn deepened, and the garden roses bloomed their last flowers. A dignified appearance suggesting the strength of life. "I've learned so much from your son," Sarah quietly told me one day, holding a coffee cup. I realized I was demanding too much perfection. For the first time, I feel I can truly face Brandon's feelings. The counseling continued. The journey to heal past wounds and find a new self had just begun. But in her eyes, there was definitely a light of hope. "Mom." One night, my son suddenly asked me, "Why did you plant the camera that time?" Mother's intuition. I suppose. I thought for a moment before answering. But if I had noticed earlier. My son shook his head. No. Because you found out, Brandon's mom was able to change. In those words, I felt my son's growth. A deep thoughtfulness beyond his 12 years. My son's heart, grown stronger and kinder through this trial. On weekend afternoons, Brandon and Sarah sometimes joined our family circle for barbecues. Children laughing beyond the smoke. Adults talking with peaceful expressions. New bonds were surely sprouting. These children's friendship saved us. Sarah murmured while watching the children. Her profile no longer held dark shadows. At dusk, watching the families gathered in the garden, I think. There's no such thing as a perfect family. But relationships where we understand and support each other's wounds. Perhaps that's the true form of family. Hey, Mom. My son came running up happily. Can I practice baseball with Brandon this Sunday? I nodded at that smile. As if announcing the start of a new season, maple leaves swayed in the wind. The story of our two families would surely add new chapters from here. The clock above the fireplace quietly ticks away. It sounds like the beating of hope. Our new daily life had surely begun its journey.